Troy, dude, let's try to understand simple mechanical principles. Alright, you got a fastener, right? That can be a bolt, a screw, or whatever, right? And then you have a nut on the other side. In between, you got something called washers, which is a round piece of metal with a hole in it. Now, you put that into the fastener for one reason, and one reason only. That is to keep uniform pressure against two pieces of metal, hold them together in some shape, form, or fashion. It had nothing to do with that tower coming down. Granted, it might have a little wobble, and yeah, it might have helped, but it wasn't the real reason. See, and I explained this before in other videos. What you have on top of the tower is a windmill. Well, it's spinning at whatever RPMs that sucker's spinning at. Most people estimate between 250 up to, say, 500 RPM plus, right? Definitely less than 1,000. Well, you don't want to go that high anyhow. But it's spinning, right? You got a centrifugal force, gyroscopic. Well, having something spinning with that mass, regardless, is going to want it to achieve center point, right? It's spinning. As soon as it reaches center point, then it's going to try to maintain center point. No gyroscope, right? So you got it spinning. It's spinning at whatever its orientation is, and it gets in the whole pattern that where it doesn't want to move anywhere but that position. Okay, but it's got a lot of torque on it. So as this thing is spinning, it's sending vibrations down the structure all the way down to the ground, where it does all this and that. It just sort of shakes a bit, right? Vibration, right? But because you have wind, say 20, 25, even up here, it gets up to 40 miles per hour. That thing you have, which is not really a tower, I think it was old warehouse racks, is what I think it was, is not designed to stand up to that kind of force. Plus, you still got this big old cell sitting at the top called a windmill. So, wind blows against it, it's going to move. And then it comes crashing down. Now, if you want to keep this thing stable, keep it on the ground, well, you're going to have to use some what we like to call concrete. Right? You dig some holes, you put the post of the tower into the ground, and you put this concrete around it, and it hardens. Now it's sort of anchored to the ground. Now don't move. First step in learning how to do a tower correctly, okay? Yeah, that was some of the point I thought of, but hey, if I start pulling everything apart that you say, it's going to end badly. Oh, water. You did a thing with water recently. Well, that tank that you got from wherever isn't going to stand the test of time. It's going to fall apart. And I don't care what it had in it. I think it was blue or something. But you really don't want that in your water. You want it food grade. Right? You're going to run that in. You're going to gather your water. And then you want that to charge up the rest of your tanks. Now, if you do it right, you don't have to work hard to get those tanks charged up. I told you how to do it. You put two at the bottom, level with the ground. I guess you can use pallets, but you want level ground where it's not going to move. And then above that, you put two more tanks, right? Here's what you do. The rain water comes off, however it goes. It doesn't really matter left, right. It comes off, goes through your first stage diverter, comes out, and it does your initial wash, right? And then when it gets up to the point where the ball goes up, it flushes it over, it hits the first tee, and it starts dropping through, right? It can't really go to the other side yet, okay? But it's going to come into this first tank. Now, the first tank, what you do is out of the faucet of the first tank, you put a U in, right? A union. And you loop it back. But you got these other two tanks sitting on the other two tanks, but you want to lift it up so the weight of the tank doesn't crush the bottom tank. And what you do is you run the line back and into its top feed, which would, because it's a straight pummeling thing, all you have to do is knock out the end, put in your PVC pipe running through, into that, drains in that, goes into the bottom. Now, at the bottom, what would happen is, as you come out of the faucet of the bottom tanks, you have a T, right? And the other T goes back and into, it's a 90, goes into the other tank, and that way, water comes down, water comes over, water fills the other tank, everything comes up even though you got a, overflow where it can't go over and fill the other tank if there's a gusher. And, it went down, but it's still got a bunch more water, so it's going to go over here and it's going to drop to the other U, which I wouldn't put a U, I'd put a T. And then the rest of it go out as the overflow. You got to overflow the water somewhere. And that's a good place to put the overflow, is at the end tank of the top range. Anyhow, it goes out, it fills up the tank, and the tanks come up evenly. Now you got 4 tanks filled up at 255 gallons each, which will give you a total of in or around 1,000 gallons. Now, you take the water out of that tank, run through a slow sand gravel filter, right, at a drip rate of 6 gallons per hour. Maybe 3. 6 probably work fine. And then from there, you take drip drop into a 30-gallon tank. Now, if you put that on a timer somehow, you can have a pump come on about once every, 6 hours, or you can put a float type of switch on there. When the float gets up to a certain point, then it starts pumping the water out and pumps it into whatever you want to pump it to, whatever. And then you store that filtered water. It didn't say clean. Well, it's clean, but it's not potable water, but it's clean water. No sediment, no bird dew, no whatever. But it might have viruses. It just not clean to drink. Now you can take that water from that tank, which you feed it into, whatever tank you make your main drop into. You can take under demand, bring that water up, and then run it through 1, 2, I'd say 3, 4, 5 filters. That's 3 different wire ones, 2 different ceramic ones, maybe another ceramic, and then the output of that run it into a UV filter, which will kill the viruses, and then that water is dropped in your used tank for drinking. Problem solved. Now you can drop off the pieces out of this union that you don't think you need. I mean, if you're not going to ever use it for drinking, right? You could probably take it up to the point where you get to the ceramic filter and stop. I'd use the various sediment filters and catch as much as you can. That way, there's no sediment coming through. There's no grime or grit or whatever. All right, then you can use that. Now, your gray water coming out of your kitchen or wherever, you can take that water and run that straight into the garden. And I'd probably run that through. Well, I don't know about drip lines, but you need to run it into an actual a cistern to hold it, and then let it filter it somewhat, and then take the water from the filtration of that, and then you can run it to the garden. Because you don't want soap and food particles or whatever getting into the garden. Just send the water. Hey, water made simple, windmills made simple. Oh, one more thing about the windmills. When you run the windmill, it doesn't go through a charge controller. Not really. When you take your windmill, you're going to run your windmill into the battery direct, right? So you don't really have to run it through a charge controller. Don't even worry about charge controllers. So just connect the windmill straight into the battery and let it charge. What you do have to have is something that they did call a wind charge controller, but it's not really a charge controller. It's something that once the battery gets full, that it will divert the power going from the battery and send that power somewhere else, right? Or it'll take part of the power in the battery and dump it into something else. There's several variations. But with your sitting there, with your situation there, hey man, you got nowhere to dump that power. Once your batteries are charged up, there's no place to put it. Unless you want to do a water heater, that would work. Or you can just run it through a bunch of resistors that just creates heat and bleeds it out. In the wintertime, it might keep that shed of yours warm. Keep it from getting cold in there. That's assuming you got wind to drive it. Yippers. Wind, solar, not same. And with wind, you got to anchor the little turkey to the ground. Because like anything, wind has a lot of force to it. And windmill has a lot of torque to it. And between force and torque, you're going to have unpredictable situations depending on what occurs. So I'd recommend you ground that sucker to the ground. You anchor the little turkey to the ground. And you make sure it's good and solid. Or you're going to have another flying threat in that fairy meadow of yours. Yeah. You take care, Troy. And I got to talk to somebody else indirectly about a false Christian. Talk to you later, mate. See you lads later. Shalom.